Last video, I talked about my love and teenage discovery of the punk rock genre and what a beautiful thing it is. But the previous artist was not the very first artist that I fell in love with in the punk world, because when I was in second grade, I remember for my birthday begging my parents for a CD I saw in Best Buy that looked to have an explosion of feces on it. And I wasn't really sure what that was about, but I had heard some songs from this record and I needed to hear more. So thankfully, they got me this CD, I think a little bit against their will, but every day to second grade and every day home from second grade, I listened to Green Day's Dookie on repeat. And I think if you stretch the wrinkles of my brain, if you spread them out, deep in there are the drum patterns and the power chords to the entirety of Dookie. They have burned themselves so deeply into who I am. So I want to talk about Green Day, and I'm going to play a song from an album that I think was the epitome of Green Day. They had quite an interesting history and an interesting explosion, and I think it definitely caught them by surprise. But the song that I want to play is off an album where they really got their stuff together and they decided that this is who we are. So I don't really even think there's many people who don't know who Green Day are. So you might know them for many different things. They've been around for quite a while. But this album, Dookie, coming out in 1993, was really an explosion for this band and this punk scene in general that they really hadn't seen up until this point. They're from California and hanging out with bands like Operation Ivy and Rancid. Shout out to Burning Beard. Hanging out with these bands and developing this fast punk sound, and they had an incredible hit record in 1993, and it shot them up into a place where they were not comfortable, but they needed to show that they had staying power. And boy, did they have staying power, right? They have still consistently put out music since then. But what has always set them apart from other artists to me are the drums. You see, that album was so re-listenable because of all of the rhythmic patterns. In punk music generally, and in the early days of Green Day, it's mostly power chords. But these power chords are all structured around Tré Cool and these rhythmic patterns that are so catchy and so interesting at times. And you throw in, obviously, a couple fantastic drum fills and some aggressive bass lines, and it's undeniable. It's undeniable. So having played for quite a while together and then having this hit record in 1993, you are not celebrity. You are still punk rockers. And that must be very incredibly difficult to understand and wrap your mind around, playing small stadiums when you were just filling a couple hundred cap venues a few years before with your punk friends. I understand a lot of their punk friends were not very happy with this success, and I think Green Day included. So touring this schedule, now that they've found this newfound fame, this struggle begins, and in 1995, they decide to put out my favorite Green Day album in response to all of this that they're feeling. The album's called Insomniac, and it is much more aggressive than Dookie. It's angry. It's very angry. And at the time, it did not sell as well as Dookie did, but I think that was almost on purpose. I think the three guys were really taken aback by the success, and they still wanted to run with this punk sound that they were messing with. And I think the guys each turned themselves up to 11, using any substance they could to really go as hard as they could for this record. And it's very Green Day still. It has incredible rhythms and incredible parts, great songs, but everything really has like a pissed off vibe to it. And I love that. Especially, like I said, being in second grade and loving Dookie, growing up a little bit and having this album come out, come on. What young boy would not want to eat this album up? And looking back now on Green Day's long history, knowing that they've been performing consistently since this point, Billy Joe was only 23 years old in 1995 when this album came out, so he was still very much a kid. And taking on this responsibility of being this frontman and leader in a massive punk band with all of your friends below you in popularity, being 23 years old, that's a lot to handle. And of course, you would want to rebel against that. The sound reflected it, for sure. But being the artists that they are, being musicians and wanting to keep creating, they knew that they had to kind of push all of this attention and all of this stuff aside and focus on who they were as a band. So after 4 years of riding and touring with this success on them, they put out Nimrod in 1997, which is really a focused Green Day sound. They have arrived, I feel, with this album. They took the influence, they took the anger that they felt and injected it with the maturity that they knew that they had. And they made an album that is so catchy, has such great songs on it, and is still a fluctuation of the angriest parts of Insomniac. And it goes all the way to the quietest parts. This is the album with Good Riddance on it. So they are experimenting with all kind of sounds now. On this record, they have finally pushed through, said screw you to the people who were angry at them and welcomed who they were. I mean, this album runs the gambit of sounds, really. There's harmonica, there's horns, there's Indian influence. There's so many experimental things on this record. To be called a punk record, I don't know. They may have started to lose this punk status at this point, but in turn, they gained so much musicianship and so much higher quality of writing. I think they wanted to be better on this album, and the results were really good. They opened themselves up to a whole new audience, I think, blending these sounds and influences, and with Good Riddance being such a large hit and being played on television and things like that, it's undeniable at this point. If you didn't know them in 93, you definitely knew them now. And I think at this point in their career, they were ready for that. They accepted that status, and I think most people now know Green Day as playing arenas. They're an arena rock band. They leaned into that into their later years, and I think they tried to make some stuff that was more fitting of those venues and whatever they want to do, really. Whatever they wanted to do after this point, they were able to. Working on these first couple albums and honing this sound really paid off for them. And I think early on, finding the success and being met with this pressure and pushback from their community that they grew up with lit a very unique fire under Green Day, which caused them to create some of the highest quality and catchiest punk and rock music of the mid-90s. It was undeniable, and they were just so quality. I feel like it almost gets lost in a way, just how great some of these songs can be. Filtered through a fast punk rock lens, you could almost miss how interesting some of these lyrics are, and his vocal melodies are really unique, and just how great these punk rock chords are, the way that he constructs them, and all surrounded and followed by this incredible rhythm section. It's no shortage of fantastic Green Day songs. I've soaked them up since the second grade. So, filtered through a different lens, maybe the one coming up in a little bit, it could give you a different appreciation for a band like Green Day. So stick around. Thank you for seeing me. Wow. Well, I've got some scattered pictures lying on my bedroom floor. Reminds me of the times we've shared. Makes me wish that you were here, 'cause now it seems I've forgotten my purpose in this life. While all the songs have been erased, guess I've learned from my mistakes. Well, open the past and present now. We are there. Story to tell and I am listening. Open the past and present and the future too. It's all I've got, I'm giving it to you. Well, loose ends tied and knots leaving a long town in my throat. I'm gagging on a souvenir. Live to fill another year. We'll drag it on until my skin is ripped to shreds. I'm leaving myself open wide, living out a sacrifice. Well, I'll open the past and present now. We are there. Story to tell and I am listening. Open the past and present and the future too. It's all I've got, I'm giving it to you. If you've got no one and you got no place to go, would it be alright? Would it be alright? Well, I've got some scattered pictures lying on my bedroom floor. It reminds me of the times we've shared. Makes me wish that you were here, 'cause now it seems I've forgotten my purpose in this life. Well, all the songs have been erased. I guess I've learned from my mistakes. Well, open the past and present now. We are there. Story to tell and I am listening. Open the past and present and the future too. It's all I've got, I'm giving it to you. It's all I've got, I'm giving